Now I'm gonna be going over lesson 28, adding API security. In this lesson, we covered adding security token verification middleware and implementing JWT header authentication. So, security token verification middleware is basically a function that runs before protected routes and verifies that a request is coming from an authenticated and authorized user by checking a security token like JWT. So JWT is basically JSON Web Token. It's a JSON Web Token. So it's a secure way to transmit information between two parties, specifically the client and the server. And it transmits this information in as a JSON object, and it's often used for authentication. So basically, like this is basically how a JWT JSON Web Token would look. So it has the header, the payload, and the signature. So when the user logs in, writes a JWT with the user data and signs it using a secret key is created, right? So JWT is created as soon as the user logs in. Then the client stores the token and includes it in the header of the future API request. And the server verifies the token on each request. So that's how it works. So in my API routes over here, I have this line of code: router router.use users controller.verify JWT. So this is using the verify JWT method, right? So let's see where that is. That's in our users controller. So this is the method verify JWT. So we're verifying the JSON Web Token, basically. So it's basically a middleware function, and what verify JWT does is it checks for a token in the request headers. So it checks for a token in request headers, the token. And then it uses JSON Web Token verify function or method to validate the token using a secret key, as you can see over here. So it validates the token using a secret key. Then if the token is valid, right? So as you can see in the if statement, so if the token is valid, so first you can see this arrow function where payload basically takes the token that we're checking, if that specific token, it takes that as an argument stored in payload. So then here it's saying if payload is valid, right? So basically if the token is valid and the user exists, right? When that happens, then the next function is basically called to proceed to the route handler. If not, right? So I was supposed to refer to this function. So if the token is valid, right, and the user exists, so we're also checking if that specific user exists by using find by ID. And if that user exists and if the payload is valid, then this next function is basically called, and it proceeds to the route handler. If not, then it will just show that no user account was found, and it shows the error message. So the 401 or 403 page. Then so basically this function is just ensuring that only authenticated users with a valid token, right, can access the routes. Then we implement JWT header authentication. So over here in this API authenticate method, right? So firstly, what this is doing is, like, when a user like logs in successfully, right, the back end basically signs a JSON web token, right, using this sign function. So then over here, um yeah, over here basically this is identifying the specific user, right? Then here we're basically, it's basically an expiration date that is set for that token, right? For that specific token. So in this case, 1 day is set here for the expiration date. So this token is sent back to the client as a JSON response, right? So as you can see here, it responds with JSON, and it has here that the response is successful and that the token is signed. And then let's see. Back here in verify JWT, over here in this line of code, as well as here in this verify function, right? It's specifically for all the protected routes, so the client must include the JWT token in the headers. Then the server verifies it using the same secret code. And then if the token is valid and the user exists, then access is granted. So yeah, that's basically how the verified JWT method works, and this API authenticate method, signing the token, and what JSON web token basically is.